All right, so today I wanted to start by talking about something that I'm sure a lot of people are going to deal with very soon, maybe already have dealt with, and it's from Mark Friesen here, and he says, Christmas 2020, the day of the hypocrite, and all these people that shit on the freedom fighters and pro-lockdown and pro-government tyranny will all ignore provincial mandates and join their families on Christmas to then go back to shitting on freedom fighters on Boxing Day again. This is something that I'm guessing I'll see. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm guessing I'll see at least to some extent, which will bother me, but we'll see how that goes. And this is the thing I'm sure a lot of people are going to see too, and that from what I've heard, most people are going to see their families, at least to some degree. Maybe not having the full size regular get together with the extended family. That's kind of what I'm doing. Um, but I think most people aren't going to be following the rules to a T. And again, a lot of people. I mean, let's just get this out of the way right off the start. For all the lockdown zealots out there, again, the rules make no sense. We're not saving lives by doing this garbage. And if you don't trust the average person to make these decisions on their own, then why in the world do you trust them to vote for the people that are making the decisions? This is one of the major, contradictions of democracy and especially of the left's worldview in general, is because the left believes that the average, I mean, take this situation. The left believes, and it's largely the left because there's some people on the right, but it's mostly, um, they believe that the average person's too stupid to decide whether or not they should be able to go see their family, but they're perfectly competent enough to make the decisions on voting for who's going to decide, right? It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, same thing go. I mean, single mothers is another perfect example too. Single mothers they're nowhere near competent enough to decide who to have kids with, and then they need government assistance because of that, but they're perfectly competent enough to decide who to vote for, right? Again, it's just these glaring contradictions that I really cannot stand. Like, I really cannot stand. And again, the same thing goes for this situation too. So, and it's like I say too, we're not saving lives by having these restrictions. This is a complete lie. And how people get away with this kind of stuff is that they come up with these incredibly hyperbolic comparisons, like, oh, um, drinking and driving, people do that, and you know, um, it's not okay just because other people do it. Well, no, it's a completely different thing. Whether or not you get to go see your family is not what is driving this. Again, if you're sick, by all means, don't go see them. But if you're perfectly healthy, then there's no reason not to, right? There's no reason not to. And this is what I just can't stand about these people. And again, we wonder why there's so much polarization these days, is that you're literally accusing people that just want to work an honest living, that just want to be able to see their families on Christmas, as being one and of the same as wanting to kill people. Like, these people are absolute pieces of garbage. Like, again, I'm not afraid of saying, like, anybody who is making these comparisons, you are a piece of garbage. Anybody who thinks that you're one and of the same as a murderer for wanting to see your family on Christmas, like, come on, you are a absolute and utter piece of garbage. I don't care who you are. Um, so like I say, now that we got that out of the way, I think, like I say, I think it's going to be very funny. Like, I think it's going to be very funny to see, because I'm guessing I'm going to see this, and I'm guessing most people probably watching this will see this too. Um, and it's going to be very funny because, again, this is how the average person lives too. Like, the average person holds so many entirely contradictory beliefs, I believe, that they don't even recognize it, and they think that because the entire system is based off a contradiction, they think that it's okay. Um, so again, I think it's going to be very funny to see. I think it's going to be very funny to see. This is something I brought up before, but I wanted to bring it up again because it's an important point. And this is from Luke Rudowski here, and he says one of the world's richest people in the world is about to get a lot richer with his $10 billion investment in vaccines, which he hopes to see a 200 billion return on. Also, this guy supports the Great Reset, making it more fair. Again, this is the reason why I always mock the socialist types, is that they genuinely believe that the people that have screwed them over for over a generation now are just going to miraculously stop screwing them over. Like, it's so funny to watch these people. Like, the levels of, like, how naive these people is absolutely through the roof. Like, absolutely through the roof. Like, they genuinely believe that these big government programs help the poor. No, they siphon a bunch off the top and they give the crumbs to the poor. Technically, you're kind of helping the poor, but in reality, you're keeping them poor. Um, any government whenever you're talking about helping the poor, anything that isn't systems that are designed to help the poor help themselves, I don't have any faith in, because again, if your only thing when it comes to helping the poor is let's give them free stuff, then you're not helping the poor. That's like saying you're helping a drug addict by giving them more drugs, right? That isn't what helps. And again, a lot of these people that are on welfare and all this kind of stuff, they are addicted to free stuff the same way a drug user is addicted to drugs. This is another thing they always say, that's not a good comparison. Well, yeah, it actually is. For the simple reason that, again, it's just basic human psychology that a lot of these people are getting the equivalent to, sometimes even more if you have kids, even more than a minimum wage job to be on welfare. So why in the world would you want to get off of it when you're getting the equivalent to whatever, 2 grand a month or whatever it would be to for your welfare? Like, why would you do it? So of course they're addicted to it. Like, of course they're addicted to it. Um, but again, the main point here is that where is everybody being all up in arms? Like, you constantly hear about, about how, we got to tax the rich, and if we only tax the rich, then it would end poverty, even though it really wouldn't, and you would never get the money out of them anyway, at least most of it. But again, you never hear anything of this, and I think it's very simple in that Bill Gates is he's one of the biggest globalists that exists these days. So of course that the mainstream media is never going to call him out. Like, if a CEO makes $10 million a year and the average employee is making $50,000-$60,000 a year, but the CEO has spent a decade working 80-hour weeks, that's the worst thing in the world. But if Bill Gates makes 20 to 1 returns off his investments that aren't actually legitimate investments, right? Like, this is a highly coercive environment. Like, this isn't a free market situation that they let this whole virus situation get way out of control so people like Bill Gates can make a ton of money. Like, that's insane. That's insane. Um, Not to mention, too, he's made a ton of money off vaccines in Africa and a lot of these third world countries. So again, it's not a free. Again, if Bill Gates makes 20 to 1 return off legitimate forms of investments, by all means, I would not. I would have no problem with that. If he has a net worth of $200 billion off legitimate business dealings, I could care less. Like, good on him. But this isn't legitimate business dealing. Like, this is nowhere near that. So again, like I said, I don't know why this isn't talked about more. Like, I really don't. Like the CEO who makes $10 million a year, but has spent over a decade working 80 hours a week, which is most CEOs too. Like, people think that these CEOs are. I mean, some of them are crooks, definitely, by all means. Some of them are crooks, but most of these people at the top are people that worked a lot harder than the average person to get where they're going. Um, so again, it's something that should be talked about a lot more, that I really don't understand why we want to tax the what out of the CEO who made money off his own doing usually, but we don't want to. We have no problem with stuff like this. It's incredibly funny, and I think it's just more proof that the people that claim to be so worried about the wealth gap and all this garbage, they really don't care about the wealth gap. It's more or less the political gap, right? They hate they hate the capitalism gap, I think, is a better way of putting it, is that they can't, because these people believe that you know there's no any difference in outcome is prejudice or bigotry or whatever, that that's why they hate it so much. Like, that's why they hate it so much. And because Bill Gates is a full-on globalist, nobody cares about it, right? Like, nobody cares about it. Bernie Sanders, another prime, a guy who has enriched himself because of being in government. Is anybody calling to tax him more? Is he donating his money away? No, he owns like 3-4 houses, right? So again, like, the when it comes to these people, as long as they're pushing the cause of globalism and socialism, yeah, they could care less how much money they have. They could care less how much of a hypocrite they are, right? The next thing I wanted to bring up is from Tom Woods, and he shows a graph of Kentucky And he says if this graph showed the opposite result, the mask voodoo people would be shoving it in our faces. Since it looks like this, that they cry about how unfair it is. No data to change their mind. Um, the first thing I would point out is that if you don't follow Tom Woods, make sure you give him a follow because he posts graphs like this all the time. And again, you look at the graphs here. Like they implemented the mask, and here's the thing: the cases have been consistently trending up almost exactly when they implemented the first mask mandate. And again, ever since that, they've been trending up the whole time. They've extended the mask mandate. It looks like about every month ever since November, right? Ever since November. Um, so again, it's very funny to see this data that completely contradicts the lockdown zealots and the mask zealots worldview, and yet they ignore it. And this is the thing they bring up too. Another thing that I can't stand. That again, I brought it up a lot before, but they say, "Oh, I could show you some graphs that show that the mask mandate or the lockdowns work." Well, no, that's not how it works. The onus is on them to demonstrate that they work. And just because you can show a few graphs doesn't mean that your opinion is right. Now, again, they would say the same thing the other way around, but again, they are the ones that want to radically alter the way we live. Therefore, the onus is on you. If you want to, I don't know, force people to not see their family members on Christmas, you have better have some very good data to back that up. Again, this is a classic extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence example. If there isn't a near perfect correlation between mask mandates and lockdowns and a reduction in cases, there is no reason to do them. Just because there's a handful of examples doesn't prove anything. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is from Global News again, just them preying on their audience, saying federal government to pay for you know what vaccine costs as the total Canada's death toll surpasses 13K. Again, it's just playing on the ignorance of the average person, and that how many people genuinely believe that the government has like a ton of money just stacked away for a rainy day. Like, do they not realize that they have no money? Do they not realize that every dollar the government spends is indirectly or directly taxpayer money, either directly taxpayer money or it's money that is borrowed that's going to have to be paid back by the taxpayer, right? Again, it's all taxpayer money. Like, again, it's just them showing that they think that the average person is stupid, right? So, anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I appreciate whatever support I can get. And like I say, check out those links. Stay tuned for more and have a good day.